Hello, everyone. Welcome to our skill session on how to quickly solve user access problems in IBM Cognos. This is Holly Rice from Modio, and today Edwin and Kanishka are going to dig into the pains and inefficiencies of how most Cognos administrators handle their end users not being able to access reports and other content in Cognos. They will also show you how to use a feature that our software engineers developed to tackle this problem in a much more efficient way. Before they get started, let's take care of a few housekeeping items. The menu at the bottom of your screen is where you control the webinar widgets, so take a look at those and familiarize yourself with them. The yellow icon with the question mark will help you with any sort of technical difficulties right away. The audio is controlled through your speakers and is also handled by the red media widget. And if you have any questions during the webinar, use the purple Q&A icon and submit those at any time, and we'll tackle those after the presentation portion. Also, the green widget at the far right is a short survey that we would appreciate you taking a look at towards the end of the presentation and submitting for us. And we are recording, so once the webinar is over and that's produced, we'll notify you when that's available. We are also tweeting throughout the webinar, so if you click the Twitter widget, you can access your own Twitter account and join the conversation. We'll be using the Modio Skills hashtag, and you can follow that along with our tweeters at Modio_Inc. and at Cognos Ninja. So now let's dig into those pain points with Edwin.
Well, thank you, Holly. So what we will go through are the bottlenecks that support people have when they get a ticket for user access problems. So if a user cannot see their data or they have other problems, so how to solve that quickly and how to solve that in a way that the end user is happy with that. And we will present impersonation to you, what it is and how that would work, because that's our solution. And we will tell you how we eliminate the support bottlenecks. But before we do so, let's dive a little bit into this and what are the problems that end users are seeing and how we can solve that. So let's assume an end user starts a chat, and that can also be a live conversation by phone, of course. So, hey there, Holly. Can I help you today?
Hi, I can't see a report, and I need it for my team meeting this afternoon.
Oh, well, I'm sorry about that. What is the name of the report you cannot see?
It's Category Sales Quarter 1.
Okay, well, let me take a quick look here. 1 second, please. So, could you check something for me? Are you a member of the sales personnel group?
I don't know. Where do I find that out?
Okay, so let me help you here. So go to Tools, My Preferences, and click on Personal. And please tell me what you see.
Okay, hold on. No, it doesn't look like I'm part of that group. What now, genius?
All right. Let me add you to the group. And 1 second. Can you refresh your screen and see if you can see it right now?
No, I still can't see it.
Oh, okay. Think for a second here. Okay, so I will take this offline, and I will dive a little bit deeper into this. Can I get back to you?
Jeez, okay, but I have to have this report in 30 minutes. Capiche, smarty pants?
I will do my best, Holly. I will do my best. Okay, so what do we see, and what do end users normally encounter? So it's not a very efficient way of working, and it's time intensive as well. As an end user, you want to do something, you cannot access it, you don't see the data, or there's another problem, and you want it right now. And it takes a little bit more interaction between support and the end user. And in this case, over the chat, maybe I take it offline, I email, I call back, I ask them to check something. So there's a lot of interaction because if I try something, I want to be sure that that works fine. And then it can get more complex if your help desk is in different time zones and troubleshooting is done by email. So this gives an unnecessary stress on the organization, so let us help you to get out of this mud and solve the issue. Because the other problems that you will have is, of course, it would be easier if you share your credentials, but of course we cannot do that. Going to a desk and ask for help is impractical and in some cases not even possible. And also, sharing screen options, well, if they are available, you need to schedule them. The end user has to have time to do that, so that's taking time as well. And I think one of the problems that support employees will encounter is that there's pressure on them, and they will do this and try to solve this through a trial and error methodology. So they try something and they want somebody to check it, but the end user just sees a solution that is not working, so they lose confidence in the end in the support desk and the level of professionality. So what if there's a better way? What if you can take this offline, solve it, and get back to the end user and say, yes, it has been solved. I have checked it. I'm sure it's working for you. Go ahead and do it. It's quicker, it's faster, and it helps you to prevent the situation that we just role-played with you. So it eliminates effort, it saves time, but it's also an auditable and controlled way to be sure that these issues are solved. And in the end, it's all for the end user who's happy with the result and is sure that the problem that was encountered is being solved. Okay, so before we dive into the solution, I would like you all to answer a question how you do that right now. So I will give you a few seconds to look at this question, and please tell me how you would solve these issues nowadays. All right, let us take a check at the results here. Okay, so we see that a lot of people work live with the end user, like we role-played earlier. I see that we also have customers using Persona IQ at the moment, so I'm happy that that works out for you and you learned something today. And another way is setting up a test user, and that's a solution as well, but it can be time-consuming. Okay, so let's go over the solution, and then let me hand off to Kanishka to explain to you how we could solve this.
All right, thanks, Edwin. So let's look at what is impersonation and how does it help with situations like the one that we talked about earlier. Impersonation allows authorized administrators or support personnel to log into Cognos as different users. Since you see exactly what the user is seeing, this allows you to troubleshoot your issues quicker without having to resort to things like setting up temporary passwords, sharing of passwords, or even doing a screen sharing session. Since all impersonation requests are fully audited, it's a much more controlled and secure way to do things. So let's see how it's done. First, you need to set up what we call an impersonation rule in Persona IQ, authorizing your support personnel to use impersonation. All impersonation attempts are validated against these rules, which means that if you don't have any rules configured, no one can use this feature. To set up a rule, you'd have to log into the Persona IQ administration UI. And then go into the Manage Impersonation Rules area for your authentication namespace. For this demo, I'm going to set up a rule that Robert Smith, one of our support personnel, can impersonate anyone from the Dallas branch or the New York branch. So once this rule is in place, whenever Robert Smith needs to use impersonation, he would point his browser at a special URL in the Cognos gateway, which would bring up this screen. Here, he is prompted for his credentials, as well as the username of the user that he's trying to impersonate. In this case is the username for Ursula, who was reporting the problem earlier with her report. When he clicks OK, Persona will validate that Robert Smith is authorized to impersonate Ursula, and if he is, then logs him into Cognos as Ursula. So it's that simple. Now, once he's in Cognos as Ursula, he can try to pinpoint exactly what's going on. Typically, one of the first things you do in this type of situation is making sure that the user's groups and roles are correct. So he can do that by going into the My Preferences area. You can see that she's a member of the department heads group as well as the sales personnel group. So all that looks good. Then he can go into the sales report. There he sees that Ursula can see everything except the category sales report for the first quarter. So it's probably something to do with the permissions on that report. So he logs out of Cognos and logs back in as himself. And then takes a look at the permissions on the sales report. Here he sees that someone had assigned a custom permission denying access to this report for members of the department heads group. That's not how it's supposed to be. So he corrects that. Now the nice thing is, before he notifies the user that the issue is fixed, he can impersonate back in as her to see that the issue has been verified. So now she can see that missing report. So this approach really takes out all of the guesswork that's sometimes involved in solving this type of an issue. If you didn't use impersonation, you may change something, then ask the user to check if it's fixed. If it didn't work, you'd have to do that process several times. So all that going back and forth with the user isn't there anymore. All of these impersonation attempts are also audited. If you go into the audit logs within the Persona IQ, you'd see exactly when the impersonation attempts were made, as well as detailed information about when exactly these impersonation rules were created and for which individuals. So let's take a look at some of the things that Persona IQ can do. If you ever wanted to change the security provider for Cognos, the namespace replacement approach in Persona IQ is a quick and risk-free solution to that problem. Changing the security provider for Cognos is quite a challenge, as you are going to lose all the security you've configured for your content. Users are also going to lose any content they have in their My folders, all of their schedules, and so on. So the namespace replacement approach eliminates all those issues, whether you're on Series 7 Access Manager, LDAP, Active Directory. Persona IQ can help you migrate to another security provider with zero changes to your content store and with very little Cognos downtime. The delegated administration support in Persona IQ can allow you to decentralize your user management tasks. This would allow you to take some of the burden off of you and also perhaps streamline that process to make it more efficient. If you have Cognos installed on Unix or AIX platforms, you're somewhat limited when using an Active Directory as your authentication provider. The native Cognos AD namespace type isn't supported on Unix or AIX platforms, so you're limited to authenticating against a single domain in your Active Directory forest. If you need to use all your domains, you'll either have to move to Windows or set up a separate authentication namespace for each domain. With Persona IQ, you can use a MultiDomain Active Directory as your authentication provider on Cognos installed on any operating system. Many organizations nowadays are also moving to a single sign-on providers based on SAML, and it's pretty simple to integrate Persona IQ with SAML identity providers. Another common issue we've seen with our customers is not being able to know for sure how many Cognos licenses they're consuming. With Persona IQ, you can easily control who is allowed to log into Cognos. Then you can extract that data out of Persona IQ along with the group and role memberships to identify not only the number of licenses, but perhaps even the type of licenses you're consuming. These numbers can then be compared against the purchase licenses to make sure that you're compliant.
Okay, thanks, Kanishka. Now let's go into some questions, and we've got Roger with us here that will handle some of those.
All right, yes, I've been monitoring the questions that everyone's putting in on the chat, and if you do have an additional question, go ahead and enter that in the chat on the webinar, and we will we'll either address those live or we will follow up with you. I know Kanishka is looking at some of those now, and I've pulled out a few that people have typed in, and so I'll go ahead and give the answers to those. So the first question that was asked is, can impersonation be used if I have single sign-on configured in my environment? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. It can be used in an SSO type environment. The only difference from what Kanishka showed is in the screen where he was prompted for a username and password, you would not be prompted for a username and password, and you would simply enter the user that you want to impersonate. The second question that we have, and it's a great question, it says, can anyone create an impersonation rule in Persona IQ? And as I'm sure you expected, the answer to that is no. That is controlled, and you get to customize this and specify which of your Persona IQ administrators have the capability to create or change impersonation rules. The next question that we saw, someone asked, how long are the impersonation audit logs kept? And that is configurable, so you can set that according to your security policies within your organization. The default is 60 days, but you can configure that to be however long you need to keep it for compliance within your organization. Now, the next question, and I'm glad somebody asked it, was we demoed this in Cognos 11, and the question is this feature supported for Cognos 10? And yes, Persona IQ supports all versions of Cognos 10, so 10.2.1, 10.2.2, 10.1.1, all of the 10s. We even still support Cognos 8.4.1. So all the way from 8.4.1 to 11 is supported by Persona IQ. The next question that we have says, will this work if we're using Active Directory for authentication? And yes, Persona IQ can be configured to use any LDAP provider, AD or LDAP are all supported. And another question that we have here is, Can this be used to debug data level or row level security issues? So the demonstration that Kanishka went through demonstrates how to debug an object level security issue where the user could not see the report. But another type of issue you face is data level or row level security, and this can absolutely be used to debug those problems as well. So when you impersonate a user and then run a report, you see exactly what that user would see. And so you can use that both to debug problems as well as to just test and verify that your security is configured correctly. And are there any more? So I think that's all of the questions that we have. If we do see another question, we will answer it offline with you. We'll follow up with you. If we missed one, we'll go back through. And if we miss one, we will follow up with you individually and make sure that we answer your questions.
All right. Thank you, Roger. Okay, before we sign off, any final comments from Kanishka, Edwin?
No, personally, I think that this is very helpful because from an end-user perspective, there's nothing more frustrating to be on the line, see somebody trying things, not finding the problem, and you get cynical or people lose the trust in capabilities of an individual. So this is a great way of taking it offline, solving the issue, come back and tell the end user, I have solved it.
Very good. Very true. Okay, folks, we're going to let you go a couple minutes early, and stay tuned for our next skill session. We're going to be talking about successful Cognos deployment methods. We've received a lot of requests for that, and that will happen on August 3rd. So thanks so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.